Well, in his latest report, the state's ombudsman for individuals with disabilities offers an urgent warning and a handbook of sorts for the next administration on both the progress and the abject failures of New Jersey's system of care for some of our most vulnerable residents, one that's still rife with abuse, neglect, and unsafe conditions despite dire calls for change and a mountain of bureaucracy that families and caregivers need to tackle as they try to seek help. Paul Aronson was appointed by Governor Murphy in 2018 to take on the newly created role, and since then, his office has been in touch with hundreds of providers and advocacy organizations, while also receiving thousands of complaints from individuals and families. Paul Aronson is with me now to share what may very well be his last report. And I want to start with the end, because you noted that at the very beginning of this report, that you are acutely aware that this may be your last several months in the office. Does that leave you with sort of an unbridled feeling of, let me lay it all out there for these policymakers?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this whole notion of sort of leaving it on the field is sort of my mindset right now. I've had the opportunity, and it has been an opportunity, to do this for 7 years, a little over 7 years. And as I note in the report, this has probably been the most rewarding job I've ever had, but it's also been the most heartbreaking and infuriating job. And so I just feel compelled to sort of leave a blueprint, if you will, leave some sort of thoughts for the next administration, the next governor, and the next ombudsman.
You wrote, in each of my reports, I've asserted that New Jersey's system of care is a tale of two systems. After 7 years in this position, I know that to be undeniably true. Why is that, and what are those two systems? What have you found?
I found that, on the one hand, we have a very good system, a strong system. We have a lot of good people in and out of government. We have a lot of resources that we devote to people with disabilities.
Billions.
Yeah, billions of dollars, children as well as adults. We have a good provider community. So we've got a lot of good in our system. But what we deal with in our office are those folks that are essentially falling through the cracks in the system. Yeah. Folks that are experiencing abuse and neglect, folks that are not getting the support and services they need. Maybe they have severe challenging behaviors or medical complications or some combination of the two. And so that's what we deal with.
You've called for urgent action, not just in this report, but in each. You and I have sat down and spoken since you took on this role. And a lot of what is in this reflects what you found the very first year you took on the job to now. Where are there areas that you feel the state has responded effectively, and where is the progress really slow?
I think, on a day-to-day, basis, I think our state, our government, is very responsive to the needs of folks, children as well as adults. And a lot of children's supports and services come through their school system. I think, again, the Governor Murphy and the legislature have devoted a lot of resources to sort of providing supports and services for people with disabilities. So that's the good news. And I think on a day-to-day basis, we have a government that responds and tries to do the right thing. Systemically, though, what we've seen over the years is that there are shortcomings. The abuse and neglect, which we've been writing about and talking about and working on for the last several years, it continues. And it's throughout. I'm very careful not to try to quantify, let's say it's most group homes or most anything. I couldn't tell you that. In fact, I think most providers actually really try to do the right thing and try to do it in the right way. But
and yet there's still, these years later of you taking on this role, and I'm sorry for interrupting, there's still a lack of accountability. There's still no onus on folks to do an investigation or to provide those findings to family members. Families have had to push, prod, plead to get those findings when a loved one has been abused or even has died in the hands of these providers. There's still this lack of transparency.
Absolutely, and you've hit on, I think, some of the core challenges and opportunities. As I've said in the report, and we've discussed before, a lot of this work is hard. Whether you're on the front lines, you're a direct support professional or provider, working in government, trying to do the right thing. It's not easy, but none of this is rocket science. We know the way forward. We know how to stop abuse and neglect through the workforce, through paying direct support professionals a living wage, to train them, to hold them accountable, to hold the provider agencies accountable. I mean, we have a system right now that if a provider agency continues to do something wrong or doesn't follow through on a corrective plan of action, there's no financial penalty. There's no
Right.
repercussion, really.
So who is the system protecting then? The provider or the person that they're charged with caring for?
Yeah, and one of the concerns, and I sort of note this towards the end of the report, is I get this sinking feeling every once in a while that there's this too big to fail sort of mentality, that there's a concern that we have to sort of be careful how we treat these provider agencies for fear that they'll sort of just pack up and leave. And I don't think that's the case. In fact, I have found some of the larger provider agencies and, good ones trying to raise the bar on the rest of sort of the industry, if you will. But we need more accountability. We need investigations that are not, right now, most of the investigations are conducted by the private agencies themselves. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And even if for an agency that tries to do it the right way and really devotes the resources to do it the right way, it's not going to have any credibility. If they come back with an unsubstantiated finding, which they often do, it's not going to be believed by the family, and they have no closure on a situation.
We have up on our screen right now just a poll from the report of some of the urgent calls that your staff and your staff, I say it's only a couple of people, have received. What's your biggest concern for this next administration? What do you hear most from families?
I think, we deal with abuse and neglect on a daily basis. We deal with, again, folks with severe challenging behaviors and medical complexities. I think, what I would say to the next governor, the next administration, is just put people in this office and in other offices that have that lived disability experience, that they get it. I don't expect anyone, particularly a governor who comes in and has to deal with a whole range of issues, to be expert on disability issues. But what I would urge them to do is to put in place people who have lived disability experience, people with disabilities, family members, put them throughout government, on your policy staff, as your commissioners, your assistant commissioners, and certainly in the ombudsman role, because we see things differently sometimes. We understand it as family members or as people with disabilities, and we have that sense of urgency. And that sense of urgency, I think, is what's missing most, frankly.
Take the last 8 years worth of everything that you have learned and lived in this position. Can you tick off for us just a couple of top recommendations? I mean, that I think is maybe your number one priority, but because families and caregivers want to see these things put into action. I mean, they're the ones coming to you. Are there just a couple of recommendations that you are leaving?
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. Staffing is the first thing. I mean, having the right people in the right place is absolutely important for any organization, but particularly when you're running a state. Making sure that you have folks with lived disability experience, not just running disability offices, but also, again, throughout government, because we want that sort of diversity of perspectives at the table. We want folks that understand it from a real-life perspective, sort of helping not just to be part of the conversation, but actually driving that conversation. So staffing is number one. Number two, the next governor really needs to sort of take a holistic approach to autism. I always say, we can't say one disability is more important than the other, by no means. But 1 in 29 children in the state of New Jersey have autism. We have one of the highest prevalence rates in the world. And what we need to do is bring all the experts together, the folks in government, the folks in the academic community, the advocacy community, families, bring them together. And we need to sort of take, a holistic approach, looking at providing the right level of services and supports for children as well as adults.
Paul Aronson, thanks for your work in this role, and thank you for being available to us throughout it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.